Hi and welcome back our channel. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine standing in the middle of a vast desert. The golden sand stretches to the horizon. The air is hot. The wind is quiet. At first, it seems impossible for anyone to live here. There are no forests, very little rain, almost no farmland. You might wonder, how could one of the greatest civilizations in history ever begin in a place like this? Now look a little farther. In the distance, you see a river, long, peaceful, endless. Its waters bring life to everything around it. Green fields appear along its banks. Birds fill the sky. Boats quietly move across the water. Farmers work in rich, dark soil. Children laugh as they play near the river. Merchants carry goods from village to village. The desert has not disappeared. But beside this river, a miracle has begun. This is the Nile. And without the Nile, there would have been no ancient Egypt. More than 5,000 years ago, while much of the world was still made up of small farming villages, something extraordinary was happening here. People were learning to work together. They built towns, created laws, developed writing, studied the stars, measured time, built temples that touched the sky, and raised enormous pyramids that still stand today. Even after thousands of years, they continue to amaze the world. But ancient Egypt is much more than pyramids and pharaohs. It is the story of ordinary people with extraordinary dreams. Farmers who trusted the river. Builders who moved stones weighing several tons. Artists who covered temple walls with beautiful carvings. Scribes who recorded history one symbol at a time. Priests who believed that life did not end with death. And rulers who dreamed of creating a kingdom that would last forever. Their achievements changed human civilization. Many of the ideas we use today, organized government, engineering, mathematics, medicine, calendars, and written records, grew stronger because of the knowledge they developed. Even now, the world continues to learn from ancient Egypt. How did a civilization rise from the edge of a desert? What gave its people the power to build wonders that have survived for thousands of years? Who were the men and women behind this incredible story? Today, we will travel back in time to discover the answers. We will follow the waters of the Nile, walk through magnificent temples, stand beneath towering pyramids, and meet the people who transformed a river valley into one of the greatest civilizations the world has ever known. This is not only the story of ancient Egypt, it is the story of human imagination, human determination, and the timeless desire to build something that will outlive us. Our journey begins where every Egyptian story begins, with the river that gave life to an entire civilization. Welcome to Episode 2, Ancient Egypt. Part 1, The Gift of the Nile. Every great civilization has a beginning. For ancient Egypt, that beginning was not a king. It was not a pyramid. It was not even a city. It was a river, the Nile. Stretching for thousands of kilometers, the Nile is one of the longest rivers on Earth. It flows quietly through northeastern Africa, carrying life across a land surrounded by vast deserts. To the east, there is endless sand. To the west, there is more desert. Rain is rare. The sun is intense. At first glance, this does not seem like a place where a great civilization could grow. But nature had a remarkable plan. Every year, something extraordinary happened. Heavy rains fell far to the south, deep in the African highlands. Weeks later, the waters of the Nile began to rise. The river overflowed its banks and spread across the land. At first, the floods may have looked frightening. Fields disappeared beneath the water. Villages watched the river carefully. But when the water slowly returned to its normal level, it left behind something precious, a rich layer of dark soil. This soil was full of nutrients. It was perfect for growing crops. Where there had once been dry ground, there were now green fields filled with wheat, barley, vegetables, and fruit. Year after year, the Nile repeated this gift. It asked for nothing in return. It simply gave life. The ancient Egyptians understood how fortunate they were. While many other people struggled to find enough food, Egypt enjoyed a reliable source of fertile land. Because of the Nile, families could harvest more crops. More food meant healthier children. Healthier children became stronger adults, and stronger communities could dream about more than survival. They could build, they could create, they could imagine the future. Soon, small farming villages appeared along the riverbanks. Each village depended on the Nile. People learned the best time to plant, the best time to harvest, the best places to build their homes above the floodwaters. Life followed the rhythm of the river. The Nile became their calendar, their highway, their marketplace, their source of food, their source of water, their connection to one another. Boats traveled up and down the river every day. Farmers transported grain. Fishermen carried fresh fish. Merchants exchanged pottery, tools, and cloth. Instead of separating people, the river united them. It connected hundreds of communities into one growing civilization. The Egyptians even gave the fertile land a special meaning. They called it the Black Land because of its rich, dark soil. The surrounding desert became known as the Red Land. One represented life. The other represented hardship. Together, they shaped the identity of ancient Egypt. The Nile also taught an important lesson. Nature could not be controlled, but it could be understood. People carefully observed the river. They noticed when the floods arrived. They measured the water level. They learned that planning ahead was just as important as working hard. This knowledge helped them prepare for good years and difficult ones. It was one of the earliest examples of human planning on a large scale. The river did more than feed the people. It inspired them. Watching the Nile return every year reminded them that life followed a natural cycle. Flood, growth, harvest, rest. Then the cycle began again. This pattern shaped not only their farming but also their beliefs about life, death, and rebirth. The Nile became more than a river. It became the heart of Egyptian civilization. Even today, historians often say, Egypt is the gift of the Nile. Without this remarkable river, there would have been no prosperous farms, no great cities, no magnificent temples, no pyramids rising above the desert. The Nile did not simply support ancient Egypt. It made ancient Egypt possible. But as villages became richer and more connected, another challenge appeared. Who would lead these growing communities? How could thousands of people work together under one vision? The answer would come from a remarkable moment in history. Small villages would unite. A kingdom would be born. And one ruler would change the course of civilization forever. That is where our story continues. Part 2. The Birth of Ancient Egypt. As the years passed, life along the Nile became more stable. The river continued to provide water. The fields continued to produce food. Villages grew larger. Families became communities. Communities became towns. But with growth came new challenges. More people meant more land to manage, more food to store, more disagreements to solve. Who owned the fields? Who decided when canals should be repaired? Who protected the villages from enemies? A few families could make decisions together. Thousands of people could not. The time had come for a new kind of leadership. Long before Egypt became a great kingdom, the land was divided into many small regions. Each region had its own leader, its own traditions, its own symbols. Some communities lived in the southern Nile Valley. Others lived farther north, where the river spread into a wide delta before reaching the Mediterranean Sea. Over time, two powerful kingdoms emerged. Upper Egypt lay in the south, following the narrow valley of the Nile. Lower Egypt lay in the north, where the river divided into many branches. Although the names may sound confusing, they come from the direction of the river. The Nile flows from south to north, so the southern land was called Upper Egypt, while the northern land became Lower Egypt. For many years, these two kingdoms developed separately. Sometimes they traded peacefully. Sometimes they competed for land and influence. Each kingdom wanted security. Each wanted prosperity. Each wanted control of the Nile. Then came one of the most important moments in ancient history. Around 3100 BC, a ruler from Upper Egypt, known today as Narmer, brought the two kingdoms together. Some historians also know him as Menes. Whether through diplomacy, military strength, or a combination of both, he achieved something that had never been done before. Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt became one united kingdom. This was more than a political victory. It was the birth of ancient Egypt as a single civilization. To celebrate this unity, the king wore a special crown. It combined the white crown of Upper Egypt with the red crown of Lower Egypt. Together they formed the double crown. It was a powerful symbol. Two lands, one people, one kingdom. Unity changed everything. Instead of many small leaders making separate decisions, Egypt now had one central government. Resources could be shared more efficiently. Canals could be built on a larger scale. Trade became safer. Laws became more consistent. The kingdom grew stronger because its people worked toward common goals. A new capital was established near the place where Upper and Lower Egypt met. Its location made it easier to connect both parts of the kingdom. Boats carried goods up and down the Nile. Messengers delivered news. Officials collected grain and organized large building projects. For the first time, Egypt was becoming a highly organized society. But managing such a large kingdom required more than a strong ruler. It required careful planning. Officials began keeping records of harvests, taxes, and supplies. Scribes wrote important information using early forms of hieroglyphs. Administrators organized workers and stored food for difficult years. These systems may seem ordinary today, but at that time, they were revolutionary. They allowed thousands of people to cooperate on a scale that had rarely been seen before. The strength of ancient Egypt did not come only from its fertile land. It came from organization. People understood that when everyone worked together under clear leadership, they could accomplish far more than any village could achieve alone. This idea became one of Egypt's greatest advantages. A united kingdom could dream bigger, build bigger, and leave behind achievements that would inspire the world for thousands of years. At the center of this growing civilization stood one extraordinary figure. He was more than a ruler, more than a military leader, more than the head of government. To the Egyptian people, he represented the bridge between heaven and earth. He was the Pharaoh. And understanding the Pharaoh means understanding the very heart of ancient Egypt. That is where our journey takes us next. Part 3. Pharaohs, more than kings. When we hear the word Pharaoh, many of us imagine a man wearing a golden crown, sitting on a magnificent throne, surrounded by treasures. But to the ancient Egyptians, a pharaoh was far more than a king. He was the heart of the kingdom, the protector of the people, the guardian of order, and, in their eyes, the living connection between the gods and humanity. This belief shaped every part of Egyptian life. The Egyptians believed that the universe depended on balance. They called this balance Ma'at. Ma'at meant truth, justice, harmony, and order. If balance was lost, chaos would follow. The Nile might not flood, crops could fail, disease might spread, enemies could invade. Keeping Ma'at alive was the pharaoh's greatest responsibility. His role was much larger than ruling a country. He had to protect the balance of the entire world. That is why people respected him so deeply. Every morning, as the sun rose over the Nile, many Egyptians believed it was another sign that the gods continued to bless their land. The pharaoh was expected to honor those gods through ceremonies, temples, and wise leadership. In return, the gods would continue protecting Egypt. Whether this belief was true or not is not the question. What matters is that millions of people believed it. And belief has always been one of the strongest forces in history. Of course, the pharaoh could not rule alone. Ancient Egypt was too large. Thousands of villages stretched along the Nile. Millions of people depended on careful organization. To manage this great kingdom, the pharaoh relied on trusted officials. The most important was the vizier. You can think of the vizier as the pharaoh's chief advisor. He supervised government officials, settled legal disputes, organized building projects, managed food storage, and helped ensure that the kingdom ran smoothly. Below the vizier were governors, scribes, engineers, military leaders, priests, and skilled workers. Each person had an important role. Together, they created one of the world's first highly organized governments. This system helped Egypt remain stable for centuries. The pharaoh was also expected to lead the army. Although ancient Egypt enjoyed many peaceful years, danger was never far away. Neighboring kingdoms sometimes fought over land, trade routes, or valuable resources. When necessary, the pharaoh led military campaigns to defend Egypt and secure its borders. Victory brought security. Security allowed trade to grow. Trade brought wealth. And wealth made even greater achievements possible. Yet perhaps the greatest power of the pharaoh was not military strength. It was the ability to unite people around a common vision. Imagine asking tens of thousands of workers to build a massive temple or a pyramid. Such a project would take years, sometimes decades. It required food, stone, tools, engineers, architects, boats, planning. Above all, it required people who believed their work had a greater purpose. The pharaoh gave them that purpose. To many Egyptians, building a temple was not simply construction. It was an act of devotion. Working for the pharaoh meant serving the kingdom, and serving the kingdom meant serving the gods. This shared belief created remarkable unity. Some pharaohs became legendary. Names like Khufu, Hatshepsut, Akhenaten, Tutankhamun, and Ramesses II are still remembered today. Each ruled in a different way. Some expanded Egypt's borders. Some built magnificent monuments. Some encouraged trade and peace. Others introduced bold religious changes. Their personalities were different, but they all shared one responsibility: to protect Egypt and guide its people toward a stronger future. The pharaohs understood something that great leaders throughout history have also understood. A civilization is not remembered only by its wealth. It is remembered by what it creates: the monuments, the ideas, the knowledge, the legacy it leaves behind. And nowhere is that legacy more visible than in the greatest stone structures ever built by human hands. Rising from the sands of Egypt, they have stood for more than 4,000 years. The pyramids. How were they built? And why did the Egyptians believe they were worth such an extraordinary effort? That mystery awaits us in the next chapter. Part 4. The Builders of the Pyramids. Imagine standing on the edge of the Giza Plateau more than 4,000 years ago. The morning sun rises over the desert. Thousands of people are already at work. The sound of stone being cut echoes through the air. Workers pull enormous blocks across carefully prepared paths. Engineers measure every angle with remarkable precision. Architects study detailed plans. Supervisors organize hundreds of teams. Everyone has a job. Everyone has a purpose. Slowly, day by day, a giant pyramid begins to rise toward the sky. Even today, the Great Pyramid of Giza is one of the greatest engineering achievements in human history. For centuries, people have asked the same question. How did they build something so extraordinary without modern machines? The answer is both simpler and more impressive than many people imagine. The pyramids were not built by magic. They were not built by aliens. And most historians no longer believe they were built primarily by slaves. Instead, they were built by thousands of skilled workers, craftsmen, engineers, stonecutters, boat builders, cooks, doctors, and laborers, working together on one enormous project. Many of these workers were farmers. Each year, when the Nile flooded the fields, farming paused for a time. During those months, many farmers joined royal construction projects. They earned food, clothing, shelter, and respect for their work. Building the pyramids became a national effort. It united people from different parts of Egypt under one shared goal. The stone itself came from several locations. Much of the limestone was cut near the construction site. Higher quality white limestone was transported from farther away. The beautiful granite used inside the Great Pyramid traveled hundreds of kilometers from Aswan in southern Egypt. Without trucks or cranes, this seems almost impossible. Yet the Egyptians found a way. Large stone blocks were loaded onto boats. The Nile became the world's greatest highway. When the boats reached the building site, workers carefully moved the stones using wooden sledges, ropes, rollers, and carefully planned ramps. It was not speed that made the pyramids possible. It was organization. Every block had to arrive at the right place. Every team had to know its task. Every measurement had to be accurate. One small mistake at the bottom could become a huge problem near the top. The builders understood something that every great engineer understands today. Precision matters. Patience matters. Planning matters. The Great Pyramid, built for Pharaoh Khufu, originally stood about 146 meters tall. For nearly 4,000 years, it remained the tallest human-made structure on Earth. Its sides were aligned with remarkable accuracy to the 4 cardinal directions. Even today, modern engineers continue to admire its design. But why did the Egyptians spend so much time and effort building these enormous monuments? The answer lies in their beliefs. The pyramids were royal tombs. The Egyptians believed that death was not the end of life. They believed it was the beginning of another journey. The pharaoh's body had to be protected. His treasures, food, furniture, and valuable objects were placed inside the tomb because people believed he would need them in the afterlife. To us, this may seem unusual. But to the ancient Egyptians, it was an act of hope. They believed that life continued beyond death. Every stone placed into a pyramid reflected that belief. The pyramids also sent another message. They demonstrated the strength, stability, and unity of Egypt. Visitors from distant lands could see these incredible structures rising above the desert. They understood that this was no ordinary kingdom. This was a civilization capable of achieving what many believed was impossible. More than 4,000 years later, millions of people still travel to Egypt to stand before these monuments. Some come to study history. Some come to admire the engineering. Others simply stand in silence, wondering how ancient people accomplished something so magnificent. The pyramids remind us that extraordinary achievements are rarely the work of one person. They are built through cooperation, careful planning, and countless small efforts repeated over many years. Yet while the pyramids became symbols of ancient Egypt, they tell only part of the story. Most Egyptians never lived in palaces. They never became pharaohs. They never built monuments. They lived ordinary lives beside the Nile. And it was their daily work that truly kept this remarkable civilization alive. Let's step away from the pyramids and discover what everyday life in ancient Egypt was really like. Part 5. Daily Life Along the Nile. When we think about ancient Egypt, we often picture great pyramids, magnificent temples, and powerful pharaohs. But those were only a small part of the story. The true strength of Egypt came from ordinary people. Farmers, fishermen, craftsmen, merchants, builders, scribes, families who worked hard every day to keep the kingdom alive. Imagine waking up in a small village beside the Nile. The first light of dawn shines across the river. Birds begin to sing. The cool morning air carries the sound of water flowing gently downstream. Before the sun grows hot, people are already busy. Farmers walk toward their fields with simple tools. Some carry seeds. Others lead cattle to help prepare the land. Children follow their parents, learning by watching every movement. There are no classrooms. The fields are their school. Experience is their teacher. The Nile decides the rhythm of life. When the river floods, farmers repair homes, build canals, and help with public projects. When the water returns to its banks, they plant their crops. Months later, they harvest wheat and barley that will feed thousands of people. A successful harvest brings celebration. A poor harvest brings uncertainty. Everyone understands how deeply their lives depend on the river. Not everyone works on the land. Along the riverbanks, fishermen cast their nets into the water. The Nile is rich with fish, providing an important source of food for many families. Nearby, boat builders shape strong wooden vessels. Without these boats, trade along the Nile would be almost impossible. Merchants travel from town to town carrying grain, pottery, linen, tools, jewelry, and precious goods from distant lands. The river is more than water. It is Egypt's greatest road. As villages become larger, new professions appear. Potters shape clay into beautiful jars and bowls. Carpenters build furniture for homes and palaces. Weavers turn flax into fine linen clothing. Goldsmiths create delicate jewelry that reflects remarkable skill. Every craft requires patience. Every worker contributes to the success of the kingdom. Among the most respected people in Egypt are the scribes. While many people cannot read or write, scribes spend years learning the difficult art of hieroglyphs. They record harvests, write official letters, keep government records, measure taxes, and preserve important events for future generations. A famous Egyptian saying declared, "The pen is lighter than the hoe." For many young boys, becoming a scribe offered a life beyond hard physical labor. Education became a path to opportunity. Family life also held great importance. Parents cared deeply for their children. Children respected their elders. Grandparents often shared stories, traditions, and practical knowledge that had been passed down for generations. Meals were simple but meaningful. Bread, vegetables, fish, fruit, sometimes meat during special occasions. Families gathered together, talked about their day, and planned for tomorrow. Music also filled everyday life. People played harps, flutes, drums, and other instruments during celebrations and religious festivals. They danced, sang songs, and enjoyed moments of happiness after long days of work. Even in one of history's greatest civilizations, people still laughed, celebrated birthdays, worried about their children, and hoped for a better future. In many ways, they were not so different from us. Of course, life was not always easy. The hot climate could be exhausting. Illness sometimes spread through villages. Floods did not always arrive at the right time, and dangerous animals still lived along parts of the Nile. Yet the people adapted. They solved problems together. They worked as a community. They believed that every person's effort mattered. Perhaps this is the greatest lesson from daily life in ancient Egypt. Great civilizations are not built by famous rulers alone. They are built by millions of ordinary people doing extraordinary work every single day. Every loaf of bread, every stone carved, every field harvested, every child taught. These quiet acts created a civilization that lasted for more than 3,000 years. But there was another force that guided nearly every decision Egyptians made. It shaped their art, their temples, their laws, their understanding of life and death. It inspired them to preserve knowledge for generations yet to come. To understand ancient Egypt completely, we must now explore its deepest beliefs, its gods, its writing, and its remarkable pursuit of knowledge. Part 6. Gods, Writing, and Knowledge. If you walked through ancient Egypt thousands of years ago, you would quickly notice something remarkable. Religion was everywhere. Magnificent temples stood beside the Nile. Priests performed daily ceremonies. Families offered prayers before meals. Travelers asked the gods for protection. Farmers prayed for a good harvest. The ancient Egyptians did not separate religion from daily life. For them, every part of the world was connected. The rising sun, the flowing Nile, the changing seasons, life, death. Everything followed a divine order created by the gods. Among the many Egyptian gods, one of the most important was Ra, the sun god. Each morning, as the sun rose above the eastern horizon, people believed Ra was beginning another journey across the sky. Every evening, when the sun disappeared, they believed he traveled through the underworld before returning again at dawn. To them, every sunrise was more than a beautiful sight. It was a promise, a reminder that light always returns after darkness. Another important figure was Osiris, the god of the afterlife. His story taught that death was not the end. Instead, it was the beginning of another journey. This belief gave people hope. It also explains why the Egyptians took such great care in preparing tombs and preserving the bodies of the dead. Today, we call these preserved bodies mummies. Creating a mummy was a long and careful process. The Egyptians believed that preserving the body would help the soul continue its journey in the next world. This was not done out of fear. It was done out of faith. Faith that life continued beyond what people could see. Their belief in the afterlife also inspired them to build beautiful tombs, decorate temple walls, and fill burial chambers with paintings, jewelry, tools, and everyday objects. They hoped these treasures would accompany the deceased into eternal life. But perhaps one of Egypt's greatest achievements was not found inside a tomb. It was found in writing. Long before paper books existed, Egyptian scribes developed a remarkable writing system called hieroglyphs. These symbols combined pictures, sounds, and ideas. A bird might represent a bird, or it might represent a sound, or even an entire idea. Learning hieroglyphs required years of study. Only highly trained scribes mastered this complex system. Because of them, Egypt could keep records of taxes, laws, harvests, trade, religious ceremonies, and royal history. Without writing, much of Egypt's knowledge would have disappeared. With writing, ideas could travel across generations. The Egyptians also created a material called papyrus, made from plants growing along the Nile. Sheets of papyrus became one of the world's earliest writing materials. Messages, official documents, stories, and medical texts could now be recorded and preserved. Knowledge no longer depended only on memory. It could be passed from one generation to the next with far greater accuracy. The pursuit of knowledge did not stop there. Egyptian builders used mathematics to measure land and design remarkable structures. Engineers carefully calculated angles and distances. Astronomers studied the stars to predict the flooding of the Nile. Their observations helped create one of the earliest calendars, allowing farmers to know the best times for planting and harvesting. Egyptian doctors also made surprising discoveries. They treated broken bones, closed wounds with stitches, used natural plants as medicine, and carefully observed the human body. Although they did not understand everything by modern standards, many of their methods showed remarkable skill for their time. The more they observed nature, the more they learned. And the more they learned, the stronger their civilization became. Looking back, it becomes clear that ancient Egypt was not built only with stone. It was built with ideas recorded by scribes, shared by teachers, protected by priests, improved by builders, and passed from parents to children. Knowledge became a treasure more valuable than gold. It outlived kings, it outlived temples, it even outlived empires. Thousands of years later, historians can still read many of those ancient writings and hear the voices of people who lived long before our own time. That may be Egypt's greatest miracle. Not that its monuments survived, but that its ideas survived. And those ideas continue to inspire the world today. In our final chapter, we will discover why ancient Egypt never truly disappeared. Its kingdom may have fallen, its pharaohs may be gone, but its legacy continues to shape the modern world in ways many people never realize. Part 7. The Legacy of Ancient Egypt. Every civilization rises, every civilization changes, and every civilization, no matter how powerful, eventually comes to an end. Ancient Egypt was no exception. For more than 3,000 years, Egypt experienced periods of greatness. Powerful pharaohs ruled the land. Magnificent temples were built. Trade flourished along the Nile. Knowledge continued to grow. But history never stands still. New kingdoms appeared. Foreign armies arrived. Different rulers came and went. The Assyrians entered Egypt. Later came the Persians. Then, in 332 BC, a young conqueror named Alexander the Great arrived. He admired Egypt instead of destroying it. He founded the city of Alexandria, which would later become one of the greatest centers of learning in the ancient world. Its famous Library of Alexandria attracted scholars from many civilizations. For centuries, people traveled there to study mathematics, astronomy, medicine, philosophy, and literature. Knowledge from Egypt mixed with ideas from Greece, Africa, and Asia. Civilization continued to grow through the exchange of ideas. After Alexander's death, the Ptolemaic dynasty ruled Egypt. The last and most famous ruler of this dynasty was Cleopatra VII. Many people remember Cleopatra because of movies and legends, but she was much more than a legendary queen. She was highly educated. She spoke several languages. She understood politics, diplomacy, and culture. She worked tirelessly to protect Egypt during a difficult period in history. After Cleopatra's death in 30 BC, Egypt became part of the Roman Empire. The age of the pharaohs had finally come to an end. Yet something remarkable happened. Egypt disappeared as an independent kingdom, but ancient Egypt itself never truly disappeared. Its ideas survived. Its achievements survived. Its influence continued spreading across the world. Even today, the pyramids remain among the most recognizable structures ever built. Millions of people travel to Giza every year, standing before these giant monuments with the same feeling of wonder. How could people build something so extraordinary thousands of years ago? The answer reminds us of an important truth. Great achievements are possible when vision, knowledge, and cooperation come together. Egypt also changed the way civilizations kept records. Its system of writing inspired future generations to preserve knowledge instead of relying only on memory. Its advances in mathematics helped builders design remarkable structures. Its observations of the stars improved calendars that later civilizations refined. Its medical practices encouraged careful observation and treatment of disease. Even its art continues to inspire architects, designers, filmmakers, and artists around the world. Perhaps the greatest legacy of ancient Egypt is not found inside a museum. It lives in an idea. The idea that human knowledge can outlive human life. The people who carved hieroglyphs into stone knew they would not live forever. The builders who raised the pyramids understood they would never see the distant future. Yet they still created something meant to last. Thousands of years later, they succeeded. Every monument they built became a message. Every inscription became a voice. Every discovery became a gift to future generations. Think about the world we live in today. We build bridges, write books, create inventions, teach children, share knowledge online. In many ways, we are continuing the same journey that began along the banks of the Nile. Civilization has always been a chain. Each generation receives knowledge from those who came before, then adds something new before passing it forward. That is exactly what the ancient Egyptians did. And because they did, humanity moved one step closer to the modern world. As we end our journey through ancient Egypt, we discover that this civilization was never only about pyramids, mummies, or pharaohs. It was about people. People who believed that learning mattered, that cooperation mattered, that planning for the future mattered. Their kingdom eventually faded, but their ideas never did. And perhaps that is the true measure of a great civilization, not how long its rulers lived, but how long its wisdom continues to inspire the world. Our story does not end here. The journey of human civilization is still unfolding. In our next episode, we will leave the fertile banks of the Nile and travel east to another extraordinary land, a place between two great rivers, where writing, laws, cities, and organized government would reach new heights. Welcome to the cradle of civilization, ancient Mesopotamia. As our journey through ancient Egypt comes to an end, take one last look across the Nile. The river still flows. The desert still stretches beyond the horizon. And the pyramids still rise proudly against the sky. Thousands of years have passed. Empires have risen and fallen. Kings have been forgotten. Borders have changed. Yet ancient Egypt continues to capture the imagination of people all over the world. Why? Because Egypt was never only about giant monuments. It was about human ambition. It was about curiosity. It was about the courage to imagine a future greater than the present. The ancient Egyptians looked at an empty desert and saw possibility. They looked at a river and saw opportunity. They looked at stone and imagined monuments that could outlive generations. Most importantly, they believed that knowledge should never disappear. Every hieroglyph carved into a temple wall, every lesson written on papyrus, every building carefully designed, was a message to the future. A message that says, "Learn from us, then build something even greater." Perhaps that is why ancient Egypt still feels alive today. Not because its pharaohs remain, not because its temples are untouched, but because its ideas continue to inspire us. When engineers design remarkable structures, when historians uncover forgotten stories, when students study mathematics, astronomy, or medicine, they are following a path that civilizations like ancient Egypt helped create. History is not simply a collection of old dates. It is the story of human progress. Each civilization receives knowledge from those who came before, then adds its own discoveries before passing them to the next generation. That is how the world moves forward. The first humans taught us how to survive. Ancient Egypt taught us how people could organize, create, build, and dream on a scale never seen before. And this is only the beginning of our journey. Many other civilizations are waiting for us. Each one will add another chapter to the incredible story of humanity. As you continue learning English through these stories, remember something important. You are doing more than improving your vocabulary. You are exploring the ideas, discoveries, and dreams that shaped our world. Every new word you learn opens another window into history. Every story you understand connects you with people who lived thousands of years before us. That is the true power of language. It allows us to travel across time without ever leaving our chair. Thank you for joining me on this journey through ancient Egypt. If you enjoyed this episode, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us as we continue exploring the greatest story ever told. The story of human civilization. In our next episode, we will travel east to the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. There, we will discover how the people of ancient Mesopotamia built the world's first cities, created the earliest known writing system, and gave birth to many of the ideas that still shape civilization today. Until then, keep listening, keep learning, keep asking questions, because the more we understand the past, the better we understand ourselves.